One of the worst losses in Red Wings history, the greatest loss in Ottawa Senators history, and the Stanley Cup champs might just have their groove back. It's all coming up on Locked On NHL Game Night.
When that final horn sounds, you know it's time for Locked On NHL Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. Prepare to experience game day reactions like never before. Only on Locked On NHL Game Night. Your team every day.
That horn has sounded. Hello there, hockey fans. Welcome to another episode of Locked On NHL Game Night. He's Eddie Garcia, an LA Kings fan on the West Coast. I'm Cam Stuart, a sad Boston Bruins fan on the third coast, and we are here to bring you the night that was in the NHL on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your teams every day. Eddie, saw another sad ending, yet another failed season for the Yzer plan. A playoff drought ended, and NHL history made in Dallas. Just another night in the NHL.
Yeah, it was a wild night. Teams fighting for their playoff lives, stunning comebacks, and even your Boston Bruins looked pretty good. How about that?
Winning when they're not supposed to. Don't worry, we will get to that. There is a huge stat of the night coming from that one as well, in my opinion. But I think we have to start with this original six matchup. Two teams that are vying for that final wild card spot in the Eastern Conference. Montreal is in it right now. Detroit needs to win every game. They knew that coming into this one, going into the Bell Center tonight. They didn't do it. They lose 4-1 in a game that they dominated for most of it, and the Quebecois were up and at them at the Bell Center. That's probably the best French I've ever done, by the way.
I was impressed.
That's one in a million, so take note of that.
Better than me.
The Habs get the victory, and a huge one for their march to get back to the postseason for the first time since the COVID-shortened season. So let's check in with Ian Boisvert of the Canadiens to hear his reaction from it.
The Montreal Canadiens stay winning. Ian Boisvert, Locked On Canadiens here, following the Canadiens' 4-1 win over the Detroit Red Wings, where that score is incredibly misleading. Montreal was outplayed for the majority of that game and outshot by a wide margin, especially in the first 25-3 in the first period where the shots on goal. But look, just win. That's all we ask of them, and that's all they're doing. 6 straight wins for Montreal. They are firmly in position to head to the playoffs this spring. Their magic number is now 3. There are 4 teams who can all still get to 89 points. That's the Islanders, Rangers, Detroit Red Wings, and Columbus Blue Jackets at 87 points. If Montreal picks up 3 more, they get to 90, and they are in. Of course, those teams can lose and that point total drops, but the Montreal Canadiens' magic number right now is 3. Montembeault gets to 30 wins for the first time in his career, and hey, look, on the same day the Canadiens win and get closer to the playoffs, they sign Ivan Demidov to his entry-level deal. It's pretty great being a Habs fan right about now.
Unfortunately, for a lot of the rest of the league, it is a good time to be a Habs fan right now, and that was shown tonight. I mean, he said it in there, right? The dominant first period from Detroit, 24 shots, in the first period. And yet, Eddie, this is hockey, man. It was only 1-0, and you just kept him in there. And this young, hungry Martin St. Louis-led Habs team took it to Detroit after that. They just took their chances, and that's why they're going to the postseason.
Yeah, he mentioned Sam Montembeault had a great game. This is a guy that Montreal picked up off waivers at one point, and he's been a star for him. 6 wins in a row. We were waiting for somebody in the East to try and grab this final wildcard spot, and it seemed like nobody wanted to until recently the Montreal Canadiens finally said, we'll take it. However, Detroit, you mentioned it, this was pretty much a must-win for them. They're not officially eliminated, but I think just about everybody thought they had to win this game and win it in regulation, and they don't get the win. They could have won. They probably should have won. So many great opportunities and also bad luck. JT Compher misses a wide open net in the second period off a weird bounce around the boards. Montembeault's out of his net, and he shoots it over the net. I don't even know if he knew how he did that. And then the game-winning goal is scored when Detroit defenseman Albert Johansson loses his helmet. And, of course, the rule is you either got to go to the bench or try to put it back on. He tried to put it back on. The man he was guarding, Josh Anderson, is then alone in front of the net. He scores. And the Red Wings' top 5 power play was 0 for 3. So the chances were there for Detroit. Also bad luck. Add it all together, and they're not going to the playoffs.
And the Red Wings fans just dying to get back into the playoffs. They're going to see that JT Compher miss in their nightmares. I mean, just brutal. He just has to tap it in, takes a touch, and all of a sudden the chance is gone. By the way, regulation loss for Detroit puts them at a 0.5% chance to make the playoffs. This is not good news for a team that obviously had its struggles early in the season, was streaky enough right before the Four Nations break that it looked like they had a chance with that great power play and Lucas Raymond having an awesome year and Alex DeBrincat having an awesome year. Doesn't look like it's going to happen now. They've really got to win every game from this point out. Meanwhile, across the river in Ontario, the Ottawa Senators, they're in a position where they didn't need to win to have one of their best nights in almost a decade. Yeah, the Ottawa Senators are going back to the playoffs after a 5-2 loss to Columbus, who has fallen out of the race themselves. Ross Levitan of Locked On Senators is calling it one of the great losses in the history of the franchise.
The Ottawa Senators are going to the Stanley Cup playoffs for the first time since 2017. I'm Ross Levitan from Locked On Senators, and forgive me if I don't care much about a 5-2 loss tonight to the Columbus Blue Jackets, where Fabian Zetterlund scored his first goal as a member of the team since the trade deadline in his 16th game. But the big story is, despite this loss, because Detroit lost to Montreal, it means the Ottawa Senators will break the third longest playoff drought in the National Hockey League. The fan base have been starved of this. There was the talk, the rebuild is over 3 years ago, a couple of disappointing seasons, but this version of the Ottawa Senators has persevered and will guarantee themselves a spot in the dance. Now the questions are, who will they play? Montreal's only 3 points back. Those two teams meet head-to-head on Friday, but the point being, the city of Ottawa is alive. Senators fans are feeling unbelievable because they've watched this core of players from Brady Tkachuk, Thomas Chabot, Drake Batherson, Tim Stützle grow into playoff caliber players, and we will be following it all along on Locked On Senators. We're your team every day.
So yeah, it wasn't the Senators' night on the ice, but he says it there. I mean, the place is buzzing, and how can you not be? And I think the important point in there is, like, people forget Ottawa thought they were ready to get over that hump and get in the playoffs like 2 seasons ago. And it's this core. They still don't have Brady Tkachuk. He's still battling that injury. Didn't make the trip. And these guys have rallied together, obviously not on this night, but building up to this to secure that spot as the first wild card. We could have an awesome Battle of Ontario matchup in the first round. But Eddie, it was finally time for them to take that leap.
And they've had their issues in net. They went out and made the big move, got Linus Ullmark from your Boston Bruins to solidify things. Of course, he's had injury issues, but when he's been in there, he has been good. Now, he wasn't in net tonight. It didn't matter. And, of course, it's a big picture. And this is what we love about sports, right? Montreal and Ottawa are going to be in the playoffs. Nobody really predicted that, I don't think. Not many people did anyway, at least going into this season. And yet, both teams have found a way. We mentioned Montreal getting on the winning streak late, but Ottawa, coming out of the Four Nations, playing better hockey, even with you mentioned Brady Tkachuk being in and out of the lineup a bit, resting him and getting him ready now for postseason play. And it's a good time. You feel happy. You heard Ross. You could hear the excitement in his voice. Buffalo still hasn't been in, Detroit now, but Ottawa can now erase that. They can put that X next to their name in the standings. And again, it's what sports is great. You can't predict all these things. But the Ottawa Senators have finally kind of put it together. And who knows, if we get I would love to see a Battle of Ontario, them against the Leafs. I mean, they would just be so excited to see that. We'll see. There's still a lot to be determined. I mean, we'll talk about Florida coming up. They're even kind of nipping on the heels of the Panthers a little bit to maybe even get that 3 spot. So this was not their night. And for Columbus, still, they had to win to stay alive. They got the win. It's been obviously a tough season for Columbus with the way things started. We just saw, I don't know if you saw it, Meredith Gaudreau had the 3rd child the other day. It's been such a difficult season for them. They're so young. Their better days are ahead of them for Columbus, and they needed the win. They're not done yet, but great for them to get this win and go down swinging a little bit here. But Ottawa finally breaking the streak, and they'll be in the playoffs. It's great.
Columbus still in the picture. 5 different goal scorers and the 5 goals tonight. They're in the picture, just barely. And basically every team in Canada is at least in the picture right now. And it is the biggest team in Canada, some would argue, the Toronto Maple Leafs, that are looking for their 3rd division title since the expansion 6 back in 67-68. They face the defending Stanley Cup champs tonight to try to inch one step closer to that. We'll keep you updated on that one coming up next on Locked On NHL Game Night.
Looking for a snack that is both delicious and nutritious? Then you need to crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. It's the perfect grab-and-go snack for busy days, whether you're snacking at your desk or on a road trip or just need a quick protein boost. And if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options are a classic favorite. Wonderful Pistachios is a complete protein providing all 9 essential amino acids. Whether you're running between meetings or dropping off kids, Wonderful Pistachios is the snack that works as hard as you do. Get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more.
Rolling back with it on Locked On NHL Game Night. Eddie Garcia, I'm Cam Stuart. And we talked about Toronto. They come in this matchup against the defending champs down in Sunrise facing the Florida Panthers. And they're 2 teams weirdly going in different directions. Now, obviously, they're both very much in the playoff picture here. They'll both be playing Stanley Cup playoff hockey. But Toronto, 8-1-1 in their last 10. The Cats, not so much. 3-6-1, and including losing their last 5 going into this one. But it was Florida that comes away with kind of a gut check victory. It was theirs for the taking, and they do take it against kind of a lackluster Toronto performance. Armando Velez of Locked On Panthers has our local expert reaction.
Losing streak is over at 5. What is up, guys? Armando Velez here from the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast here to quickly break down the Panthers' 3-1 win over the Toronto Maple Leafs. And the game was not as close as the final score indicated, as the Panthers had double the amount of shots as Toronto after 40 minutes. The Panthers had the pucks deep, did not give the Leafs anything through the neutral zone, and contained the top 2 lines for the Toronto Maple Leafs. They got reinforcements back in Alexander Barkov, Sam Reinhart, and Gustav Forsling, and did not trail the whole night at all. And the Panthers got back to playing to their identity, and it manifested in a goal early on in the 3rd period and clamped it down the rest of the way. And 2 stretches of this game where the Panthers did not allow a shot by Toronto of 9 minutes or more for the Panthers. We're going to break all this down on tomorrow's edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Your team every day.
Eddie, it didn't exactly look like the team that won the Stanley Cup last year. They've obviously had to change their style a little bit. Still no Matthew Tkachuk, obviously. Just barely getting Sasha Barkov back into the mix here. But that looked like a team tonight that could still win in the playoffs, even with some of their deficiencies that have shown in this season.
Yeah, they also announced on Tuesday that Sam Bennett is going to miss the rest of the season.
Right.
They're going to rest him for the playoffs, but he's upper body injury. This was a game that I thought would have a little more juice to it, even with the players that were missing. Toronto, I'm not going to say they didn't show up, but it certainly wasn't their best effort. They've got huge back-to-back games, Panthers on Tuesday and then Tampa Bay on Wednesday. I mean, these 2 games are probably going to have a long way in what's deciding who's going to win the Atlantic Division. Only 18 shots on goal for Toronto, 5 in the first, 4 in the third. Credit certainly the Panthers defense and goalie Sergei Bobrovsky getting the job done. I thought Auston Matthews was really quiet in this game. Their captain, he did have a huge chance late, but got stopped by Bobrovsky. The big guns really weren't there for Toronto. And then you get Florida with guys like Eetu Listerainen and Gustav Forsling scoring goals. So, the secondary scoring wins the game for Florida, and there's no first scoring for Toronto, even though John Tavares did get his 37th. He's got 10 goals in 10 games, so he is on fire. Yeah, by the way, UFA at the end of the season. But as a whole, I was not impressed with Toronto in this one, and now we'll see the pressure's on for them going in that game on Wednesday against Toronto. If they go over 2 in the Sunshine State, they might look back, obviously, on these 2 days and see where it slipped away. As you mentioned, looking to win a division title and have possibly an easier path to start the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned the secondary scoring there real quick, because that has been a problem for Florida. They don't have the depth that they had the last 2 years. They went out and they get a guy like Brad Marchand at the trade deadline to hopefully, kind of inch closer to that and get some more secondary scoring. And you get it from Forsling and Luosterainen today. Like that's a step in the right direction for the Panthers that we see winning in the playoffs. Good news for the Leafs. You're still probably the best team in the division. I like Tampa a little bit more right now. Bad news for Leafs fans. Championships are on the line, so not good. No bueno for the Leafs fans. That's usually where it all starts to go wrong. Speaking of, we talked about the Canadian teams that are all kind of in the picture here. Vancouver, barely in the picture. Taking on my Stanley Cup pick, that would be the Dallas Stars down in
yours
Big
and
tonight.
mine.
Great minds think alike, and
so.
I started the season with them. I backed off it with the Heiskanen injury because I love Miro Heiskanen, and I got back on pretty quickly even before the Rantanen deal. And they looked like business as usual tonight, Eddie. They're up 5-2 with a minute left. You'd be forgiven if you turned away from this game, but what we saw is NHL history. For the first time in the history of our great league, a team scored 3 goals in the final minute of the game to tie it up. They send it to overtime. They win it in overtime. Eddie, this was absolute bonkers mayhem.
And you and I were in the same boat because I had this game on. You stepped away. I was looking at another, I have 3 monitors here in my office watching these games. I kind of looked away and you texted me and said, what happened? And I looked up and I'm like, I don't know. So fortunately I was able to scroll back and watch it all unfold. And it was amazing because Vancouver, when they were down 5-2, they didn't pull the goalie because they figured it's over.
It's done. Yeah.
But they got a goal with 59.1 seconds left. They then pulled the goalie, got another goal at 29.1 seconds left. And Pius Suter with a couple of goals. They tie it up, go to overtime. Suter scoring his second goal and the third goal to tie it up, 5.2 seconds left. And then they win it in overtime. An amazing, stunning comeback. And I'm sure Canucks fans are like, where was this heart and desire and no quit attitude for the majority of the season? It was nice that they stayed alive with this, and it was a thrilling comeback win. As you said, NHL history. But if I'm a Canucks fan, that's what I'm thinking. Where was this for most of the season?
Yeah, if they had that kind of heart, they would not be in the picture. They would be in the playoffs rather than just in the picture. They're barely hanging on there, which sounds a lot like what the New York Islanders are in, that same boat of barely hanging on, technically still have a chance. They go down to Nashville, right? That should be a win. Nashville, they stink. They're already on the boat to Cancun, right? They're done with this season. Wasn't so easy. In fact, nothing comes easy with this Islanders team. Just ask our local expert, Gil Martin.
New York Islanders fall to the Nashville Predators 7-6 in overtime in a game they absolutely had to win to keep their slim playoff hopes alive. The Islanders blow a 2-goal lead in the final 3.5 minutes, taking the dumb penalty. And really, these two teams played sloppy, not fundamentally sound hockey. They played down to each other's level, and the result was an evenly matched but poorly played hockey game. The big news for the Islanders, Ilya Sorokin, injured, left the game after the second period. Hopefully we get an update on his status shortly. But this was a game the Islanders did not deserve to win, despite a very, very good game by Simon Holmstrom and J.G. Pageau. For more in-depth daily coverage of your New York Islanders, check out the Locked On Islanders podcast.
I mean, this is the kind of game you just throw your hands up as a fan. Like it's back and forth. It's 4-4 and each team's trading goals. And you're like, okay, we know that Nashville sucks, but let's just get this win here. And then it's 6-4 with 3.5 minutes to go. And somehow you're losing that game in overtime. And now you're stuck in the middle, which is what this Islanders team has looked like for a couple of years now. But I mean, this has got to be the worst loss of the season.
Yeah, and you really don't think Predators Islanders is going to combine for 13 goals and we're going to see a 7-6 final. I know I didn't expect to see that, but Nashville got some opportunities. They got a penalty with about 2 minutes left, pulled the goalie to get the 5-on-3. Stamkos scores to make it 6-5, pulled the goalie again, score with 39.2 seconds left. Michael Bunting, it goes off his body and in. And then in overtime, Fedor Svechkov with a nice wrist shot right down the middle to win it 7-6. And this was a Predators team that came in losing 6 in a row. They've had a lost season. I jumped on board at the beginning of the year. I thought this was going to be a special team. It certainly has been
I think we all did.
The opposite of that. And so the Islanders, again, joining a lot of those other teams that have had chances but just can't put wins together. They're the Islanders, the Blue Jackets, the Rangers, the Red Wings. They're not, the body is not cold, but they're on life support, and the prognosis is not good. I mean, they're going to have to basically win out and have the Montreal Canadiens lose out, which is obviously very, very unlikely to happen. But this another example of the Islanders season just not going their way and them not getting a win when they needed it.
By the way, 4 points for Stammer in that one. Couple of goals, couple of assists. Two teams that are not making the playoffs, it looks like, to two teams who have already clinched, kind of the marquee game of the night in terms of just the matchup, right? Vegas, Colorado, two teams that can go up and down the ice. No Jack Eichel in this one. It starts off 2-0 to Vegas. Colorado makes the comeback, and it's a trade deadline acquisition that gets this thing going and really kind of seals it for the Avs, right? It's you've got McKinnon, you've got Makar, Brock Nelson was the big trade deadline acquisition, and kind of secondary in there is the little Casey Middlestat, Will Zellers for Charlie Coyle trade from a Rockland, Massachusetts kid and myself to the Weymouth, Massachusetts kid. It's the town right next door, by the way. Charlie Coyle, 2 assists, and then he gets the shootout winner in the game that wouldn't die. How about an entertainment factor for you heading into, midnight Central Time?
I mean, this is a very possible Western Conference Finals preview. And the only thing that really didn't fit is the goaltenders in this one. You had Akira Schmid, former New Jersey Devil.
Awesome.
He's the third goalie for Vegas. And yes, he was fantastic, especially in the overtime. Scott Wedgwood was in net. So you had 2 non-number 1 goalies going toe-to-toe, but they actually didn't play poorly at all. For Vegas, and by the way, watching the overtime, how does Colorado not win every overtime with McKinnon and Makar on the ice? It's crazy. They're so insane. But Vegas was 0 for 3 on the power play. They've got the power play, number 1 power play unit in the league, so there were some missed opportunities there. But they looked good in the first period, but from there on out, Colorado really was able to take over and eventually pull out a hard-fought win. But with the 1 point, Vegas does clinch home ice in the first round of the playoffs. They will finish no worse than number 2 in the Pacific, and even as a Kings fan, they're going to win the Pacific. So that is going to happen. But you're right. No Jack Eichel in this one. They're still missing Tomas Hertl as well. So they need those 2 guys to get back and playing well once playoff time comes around. But a marquee matchup, a fun, entertaining game, goes to the shootout in the end. Colorado getting the victory.
And it is Mike Monaco, by the way, said it on the broadcast. I don't remember who he was citing, what website, but that is the most likely Western Conference final matchup. And that would be terrific hockey if that is the Western Conference final. But it would also be pretty good if your Kings are there too, Eddie. Coming up, we do have the best individual season in the NHL that you have not paid attention to this year. That's next on Locked On NHL Game Night.
Did you know getting a good night's sleep is the number 1 recipe for long-term success in life? I didn't. It took me way longer to realize than I'd like to admit. It was years of tossing and turning. I was always tired. I never felt like I could live up to my potential, but not anymore. Thanks to Bear Mattress. I used their sleep quiz and I matched with the Elite Hybrid. It's perfect for side sleepers like me. Now I wake up energized. I'm getting deeper sleeps and I'm ready to attack the day. No matter how you sleep, Bear Mattress has a match for you with a focus on recovery, cooling, and pressure relief to upgrade your sleep and improve your overall quality of life. Go to bearmattress.com and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL at checkout for 40% off site-wide. This offer is not available anywhere else. You have to use my promo code on the very last page of checkout to get this discount. That's bearmattress.com and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL for 40% off site-wide. Bearmattress.com, promo code LOCKEDONNHL.
Sending it down to Jersey. All the Devils need to do to clinch a playoff spot is beat the second worst team in the Eastern Conference. The Boston Bruins were spiraling out of control, but it was all Boston in this one, 7-2. And a lot of people thinking, what the heck are the Devils doing? Me, a Bruins fan, thinking, what the heck are the Bruins doing? They're going to just play themselves out of this top 5 pick they worked so hard to get to. Ian McLaren, our local expert and host of Locked On Bruins, echoes kind of the same sentiment.
Where exactly have these Boston Bruins been all season? Actually, let me rephrase that. Where have these Boston Bruins, apart from David Pastrnak, been all season? The Bruins beat the New Jersey Devils by a score of 7-2 here on Tuesday. David Pastrnak reaching the 100-point mark for the 3rd consecutive season. He's been playing at an MVP-type performance all year long. The other guys, not so much. And we got some contributions tonight all up and down the lineup with Fraser Minton scoring his first goal as a Bruin, Fabian Lysell getting his first point, some contributions from Casey Middlestat and others. A real sign of hope for things to come next season as the Bruins will look for a quick turnaround.
And it was kind of a crazy night, and David Pastrnak continues a torrid pace this season. 100 points, Eddie. 100 points for the 3rd straight year. Obviously, he's capable of 100 points, but this team on a line with Morgan Geekie and Pavel Zacha and the ghost of Elias Lindholm, to get 100 points, unthinkable. And also, he assisted on the first 2 goals in this game, which means he had a hand in the Bruins' last 13 goals at that point. Think about how crazy that is. It's a franchise record. It's the longest streak in the NHL since Jaromir Jagr did it in 99. And the only 3 players to have done that, 13, Jagr, Lemieux, Gretzky, and now Pastrnak. It's a pretty crazy season going on there for a team that really doesn't have a lot to look forward to.
Some great names there. Let me give you 2 more. Phil Esposito and Bobby Orr, the only other 2 Bruins players to have 3 consecutive or more 100-point seasons. So he joins that group as well. Enjoy it as a Bruins fan. But if I'm a Devils fan and I'm at home and a team that's lost 8 in a row on the road is coming to my house and I have a chance to clinch a playoff spot, I don't even need to win outright. I just need to get a point, and you lay an egg like that. Look, they're going to make the playoffs. That's just, you see that and you're like, what's going on? I mean,
yeah. And this is a team, obviously, that's had its injuries. I think a lot of fans sort of check out in terms of their realistic Stanley Cup chances when Jack Hughes goes down. But that's inexcusable. This is a team that hasn't scored 7 goals all year long, and you just lay that egg on home ice. It's unfathomable to me. They'll get in, but it won't be with any kind of vim or vigor. They will not be a hot team going into the postseason, but at least they'll be there. That's more than I could say about the Buffalo Sabres for the 14th year in a row. They will not be there, but they get a shutout victory over the Hurricanes, who also lost to the Bruins on Saturday. They're kind of sputtering. 5-game winning streak for Buffalo, longest of the season. And the big thing for me, by the way, Tage Thompson, goal number 44. How about the breakout season for him? They got some talent. They got some young talent on that team.
Yeah, I was glad to see also Alex Tuch got his 34th. I know his name was being bounced around as maybe a guy they would trade at the deadline. I'm glad they held on to him. You've got to build around some players. Tage Thompson certainly is the marquee piece of that. As you mentioned, 44 goals now on the year, just a monster of a player. It's very rare to see a guy with that kind of size have that kind of skill as well. But unfortunately for Buffalo, they've now joined the New York Jets as the team with the longest playoff drought of the 4 major North American sports. So yes, hopefully Tage Thompson and Alex Tuch can be the centerpieces of them building it around. But again, 14 straight years, that is rough times for Sabres fans. However, with that loss for Carolina, the Washington Capitals did clinch the Metropolitan Division. So we knew that was probably going to happen, but it officially happened because of that. Yeah. And the Canes missed a chance to clinch home ice in the first round with a win there. They may eventually get it anyway, but another missed opportunity there.
Especially for what that building can be like in the postseason, as we know, that can be an absolute cauldron. Speaking of young talent, bright future, I think we can say the same thing about Utah, right? And they get a blowout win tonight. They get the touchdown and the extra point, giving up just the rouge to the Kraken. They win it 7-1. It was 7-0 after the second period. I mean, an absolute blowout in this one. Sergachev, Keller, Cooley, all on the score sheet, plus Kyler Yamamoto against his former team. That's another one to look out for in the future in terms of those young guys. They're building something there.
Well, they're another one of the teams that would have been officially eliminated with a loss. So they're still hanging on there. 7 points back in Minnesota for the final wildcard spot in the West. 7 different goal scorers, so certainly spreading the wealth around there. They've got good ownership now there. It seems a lot of enthusiasm. This season was kind of a honeymoon season for them. Going forward, they'll be looking to kind of expect a little bit more. But there's some, Logan Cooley, Dylan Gunther. There's some good talent there in Utah, and hopefully they're building something going forward. I did want to mention Kirill Velmelka, their goalie. They're going to ride him until they're officially eliminated. Apparently, it was his 21st straight start. But he's only 481 away from tying the all-time record held by Glenn Hall, 502 consecutive starts in net. You talk about unbreakable records. That's one.
That will not be touched, I don't think.
No, I don't think so.
And weirdly, that's still kind of the era where there's a lot of rotation, weirdly enough. That's an incredible record, by the way. So thinking of young talent, that's something that Chicago is holding its hat, kind of hanging its hat on, or else they'll have nothing to hang their hat on. And it was not a great night for the Blackhawks. They're shut out by a bad Pittsburgh team. And that's kind of merciful end of the season is getting closer and closer. Jack Bushman, our Locked On Blackhawks host, gives us the update from the local expert himself.
Well, that's a couple hours of my life that'll never get back as the Chicago Blackhawks fall 5-0 to the Pittsburgh Penguins. Believe it or not, it's only the second time they've been shut out this season. However, they have now lost 13 of their last 15 games since March 8th. Things actually got off to a good start for the Hawks. I thought they had a good effort in the first period, but couldn't keep it going over the final 40 minutes. 2 key takeaways, though. Sam Rinzel had arguably his best game in the NHL so far, had numerous chances to score his first NHL goal, but just couldn't get one to find the back of the net. Feels like it's coming soon, though. Well, Kevin Korchinski struggled once again, and that's kind of been the theme for him since being recalled from Rockford. Got beat a couple of times, leading to goals for the Penguins. I'll talk about both of those 2 defensemen on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Blackhawks.
Eddie, I got to take some ownership here. They've lost 13 out of 15 since March 8th. I was at the game on March 7th, drinking out of this puppy right here when they had a little overtime victory. Connor Bedard, overtime winner against Utah, actually, the team we were just talking about before that. So I'll take some ownership of this team. Someone has.
I think there were a lot of people drinking out of those tonight.
I love the 3 hours of my life I won't get back. I think that's the theme of the Blackhawks seasons the last few years.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. I will say for Pittsburgh, Tristan Jarry, 26 save shutout. He's a guy who's under contract for 3 more years. They are hoping he can figure it out. They sent him down to the AHL. He comes back up and down, but this is something, I guess, positive for him. And Erik Karlsson, his 200th NHL goal, only the 23rd defenseman in NHL history to reach that mark.
What a player. What an absolute player. Anything else you want to add on the Blackhawks season? I think that's
I'll drink one of those first and then I'll have something to add.
I'll send one your way.
I'll send one
your way. We all need a little bit of these if we need to watch the Chicago Blackhawks. Anyway, that is the night that was in the NHL. So guys, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, ring that notification bell so you can stay up to date on everything we're doing here on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. We want to thank you for making the Locked On Podcast Network a part of your daily routine. And remember, guys, you can join us 7 days a week for all the NHL scores and storylines from your local experts and the guys like us, Cam Stuart and Eddie Garcia, on Locked On NHL Game Night.